Bears Nation feels that we still have some gaps we need to fill in on the defensive line. In a defensive tackle, we only have 3 for-sure guys at the moment and a ton of undrafted rookie free agents, and the current group being Gervon Dexter Sr., Andrew Billings, and Zach Pickens. On top of that, we have 4 edges at the moment as a lock in Montez Sweat, Austin Booker, DeMarcus Walker, and Dominique Robinson. The minimum amount of players that we need in each room, but there's a need for more because injuries do happen. And I got my guy, Pat the Designer, on from the Windy City Breeze to talk today about who he would bring in from an edge and a defensive tackle position. Pat, welcome to the show.
What's going on, my guy? How you feeling, Nick? Appreciate you having me on, man. Is this second time on the channel? I think it is.
This is the second time on the channel. It's been too long since the first time, but we're back, babe. We're in the dark days of the offseason.
Oh, yeah.
We're just trying to get through it. And I appreciate
we're trying to bleed any information out that we can, and any nugget is just like water in the desert right now. First one to it wins.
I mean, the Arlington Heights news that dropped. Yeah, it's definitely if you ain't first, you're last kind of deal, as Ricky Bobby would always say. So, we're here to have a good time. And Pat, I'm excited to have you on the show. And Pat, before we jump into what we're going to talk about today, before we begin today's show, smash that like button on this video if you want Ryan Poles to sign a free agent veteran before camp, and comment bear down in the comment section below if you're ready for Chicago Bears football to be back, so Pat and I can stop making up random trades and free agent situations for you guys. But Pat, let's talk about who you want Poles to bring in free agency. You ready to kick things off?
Let's do it, my guy. Let's get into it.
All right, Pat. So we obviously, defensive line consists of 2 different major positions, the edge and defensive tackle. So let's start with the edge because Montez Sweat needs a partner in crime. He had one last year, but if you were to go out and free agent right now with the money we're going to have left over from Caleb Williams and Roma Dunze's contract, who would you want to bring in as that second edge for Montez Sweat?
Well, I think because of that, you need to go out and get his running mate that you had in the building last year. To me, Yannick Ngakoue, I see him as the perfect option for the Chicago Bears. Opposite there, he already comes in knowing the system. You're not trying to inculcate him into something new. You're not trying to add somebody in who's not familiar with the players and the personnel in the building. Now, as far as I know, Yannick had no issues with anybody in the building last season, right? So I think that would be a solid fit to bring back in. And to me, coming off of injury, I think that's where, right, we've heard that the Bears kind of want to go bargain shopping on this, which is why you're seeing some of the names pop up that you are. I think you might be able to get Yannick at a little bit of a discount this year because, to me, right, financially, coming off of a broken ankle, I'm still willing to invest in you and bring you onto the team because I'm not worried about, right, you re-breaking your ankle. It's not like there's ligament damage there that I'm sitting there like this is going to have long-term effects, but I'm more so worried about, can we get you in here at the right price? And coming off of injury, that may scare some other teams away, but it wouldn't scare me away.
He looks good. I mean, he's running really well in his Twitter videos. He's lifting. He looks good. And I actually found out that because players can be in Halas Hall or whatever building they're a part of training camp wise till they're officially a free agent again, he was there till March.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the guys that were there over the winter loved seeing him there. And overall, he's invested in being a Chicago Bear. I mean, obviously the free health insurance and some of the best doctors in the world helps being there. But he could have gone anywhere in the world to get the same exact training, but he did it with the Chicago Bears and stayed in Chicago. So I think that he seems pretty comfortable here. And you talked about his finances. So I kind of want to break that down with you real quick, Pat, because last year he played in 13 games, 22 total tackles, 6 tackles for loss with 4 sacks and a pass deflection. Not the numbers we were looking for because he was one of the better edges over the last decade at least. Right. And last year we did pay him a pretty decent salary of $10.5 million. So you're saying that you would think we could get him for a bargain. I think that the Bears could be like, hey, we gave you a lot of money. You missed a lot of games last year. You're still getting a lot of money from us. Like, what can we work out? What are you willing to pay him then on a, quote, bargain contract from his last deal?
Well, I think you're in the $7.5 million kind of range for me with Yannick coming off of injury. You're coming off of a poor season. You're coming off of injury as well. You have a little bit less leverage, and I think teams around the league are probably going to look at you and go, well, we don't know if you're going to be that same guy that you were a couple of years ago. We're not as willing to take a chance on you, which I think drives the price in the other direction. Meanwhile, the Chicago Bears are here. They know the circumstances around it, right? They know, oh, listen, look, he was out there by himself. He's always been the other guy on defenses. Now he's got that main guy to go out there and be after him. The few games that we saw of him and Montez together were actually showing some promise and moving in the right directions. You have that in-person eagle eye view. I think that, to me, teams around the league not being as interested in him off of a down season, especially a second off season, coming off a down season, coming off of an injury where, remember, the off season before, teams weren't beating down his door to bring him in either, right? That's why the Bears got him. $10.5 million was a steal for how much he was looking to get the season previous. So to me, you bring Yannick in here on a $7.5 million type deal, maybe another 1-year deal, or if he's finally ready to settle down somewhere, you give him a second-year option on there. I think that will be something that could benefit the Bears long-term. I think it's something that definitely benefits you this season, and you can kind of start to build that rapport between him and Montez as you head into this season.
And I mean, I think that you kind of hit the nail on the head there too. Him and Montez Sweat started to really heat up together in that second half of the season, because Yannick isn't the same guy. He's 30 years old now, been in the league for 8 years. I mean, 6'4", 275. So he's definitely got the physical ability there. But being in the NFL and being an edge, your body gets worn down real quick. And he was able to really start picking things up once they traded for Montez Sweat. He had 2.5 sacks after Sweat came in out of his 4. Out of his 22 total tackles, 14 of them came with Montez Sweat. So he started to have less pressure on him, and he was able to perform a little bit better. Maybe, and he knows this Eberflus defense, maybe this could be the right move to do again. And I'm not disagreeing with you at all. I think it would be great to bring him back. It'd be an instant plug and play. You don't have to teach anything. And Eric Washington, he's a defensive lineman guru. So I'm pretty excited about it. So you're saying roughly $7.5 million on a contract for the first year with maybe a second year incentive? Or would you do a lower cap hit with more incentives, then maybe he would try to bite on that?
I mean, I guess you kind of have to see where the market plays. I'd go lower cap hit, more incentives if you already know, right, that nobody's looking to bring in Yannick Ngakoue. If you already know that you're in the same market as last year, and it's just like, all right, dog, you want to play in the NFL this season or not? We're willing to give you for you to come back and prove yourself versus what you're going to go out there and get on the open market right now. But I think the Bears are in a position where it's kind of desperation on both sides, right? It's desperation as far as the Bears on that second defensive end spot. It's also desperation on Yannick, making sure that he's signed with a team that is going to put him in the best position to be successful. I think that when you have two spots desperate like that, you can come in and bring a guy in on a 1-year deal or maybe a 1 and some change type of deal and feel better about getting a deal done because you know that both sides have a need for each other. And if there does turn into a long-term thing, right, it's more of a prove it than it is a you come in and we just believe that you're going to be this guy right off the bat. I think we're 2 seasons removed from that now. And I think we're 2 seasons from the NFL believing that Yannick is that same guy coming in. And a lot of times it also has to do with personality wise, right? What is the guy's personality going to be? How's he going to fit into the system that the whatever the team is trying to build there, right? He seemed to fit fine here, but there were a lot of questions about that when you look at some of the other teams that were out there, especially last season when it was time for him to get another contract.
I'm with you. I mean, I'm with you. I think bringing him back is a great move. I think the NFL, if no one's picked him up yet, I don't see anyone picking him up until at least training camp, maybe an injury or something like that. So if the Bears can hop on it, offer him a contract, and he's like, yeah, this is a risk I'm willing to take because I could get more money going elsewhere, Poles could work his magic. And also, Yannick knows that this team is a lot better than last year. 100%. The gel is there. The defense is there. I'm pretty excited about it. I don't know about you, but I'm pretty excited about this upcoming season for the defense.
No, 100%. I think that plays into it too, right? If you're sitting there looking around the league, the teams that are going to give you the money are the teams that are, guess what? Just like the Bears were last year, desperate to get somebody in there to rush the passer. Maybe if you want to go for the money, if you want to get in on that, for sure, go ahead and do that. But Yannick's been in this league long enough. I wonder when winning does play a part for him. I wonder when being on one of those teams that could make a playoff run plays a part for him. And hopefully that's this season, because I think that adding him to this Chicago Bears team does turn this team into that.
I love it. And we still got another guy to go through in order to potentially change this team and help things out. So, we were talking about before we kind of kicked things off, there is nothing in the defensive tackle market right now. There's very few names. We joked about it. We could go out and get someone in River North at Tao nightclub to become the next defensive tackle for the Bears, just to add some depth. And there's a lot of good undrafted rookie free agents on this team. But Pat, we covered edge. You went with Yannick, solid option. Who in the defensive tackle market would you go after in order to make this team better?
Listen, dog, like once Calais Campbell was off the board, it was like, all right, like we rolling with the guys that we got. Can we re-sign Javon Dexter, right? Like that's kind of what it looks like out there. But to me, if you're going to take a chance on anybody, you take a chance on a guy who last season ends up dealing with injury, right? Hassan Ridgeway doesn't play much last season, but the season before, as far as being one of those defensive interior guys, defensive tackle guys, thought that he did a really good job creating pressure on the quarterback, especially in that pass rush, more of a pass rush specialist than anything. If I'm going to take a chance on anybody, he's kind of one of the few names left on the board that shows me a little bit of intrigue or gives me a little bit of like, okay, I can find a spot for you. But like you said, man, there's just not a lot out there. I think the more than likely scenarios that the Chicago Bears look to continue to just build within, and you've gambled this far because of what the market looks like right now. You've gambled on the young guys that you have, and they've got to start to hit. They've got to start to make moves that are moves that can actually create pressure on the quarterback up the middle. That also plays into the defensive tackle conversation, right? Bringing in a guy like Ridgeway, if he's able to create some pressure up the middle, that makes Montez Sweat better. That makes DeMarcus Walker better. That makes options a little bit easier. To me, I wouldn't say that he's you have to go out and get him, but if we signed him, right, we'd be able to make a video about it. That's kind of where it's at with the defensive.
Real content. So I kind of want to break down a little bit about him just so the viewers know a little bit more about Ridgeway, because he has shown success in the NFL. Last year, only played in 3 games due to injury with 6 total tackles. That was about it. And last year, he signed a 1-year, $3.25 million with the Houston Texans, knocked him out for the season with that injury. But the year before, with the San Francisco 49ers, he was an impactful player. 28 total tackles, 3 tackles for loss, 4 quarterback hits, 1 forced fumble, and 2 sacks for an interior defensive lineman is pretty darn impressive. Not everyone's Aaron Donald. This guy's also been in the league for a while. He knows how this league works. 8 years pro across the Colts, Eagles, Texans, and 49ers. And when he was on the Colts, guess who his defensive coordinator was? Matt Eberflus. So even though he had this injury due to last year, we're kind of playing the injury card, like the low risk, high reward with these guys, and putting a couple $1 million on it. It's like going to Rivers Casino and just, hey, let's see how this one works out. How do you think he can bounce back to where he was before? Because he's still a young guy. He's 29 years old. He has a little gas left in the tank. But how do you feel, Pat?
No, I do. I think that he can bounce back. It's just, to me, right, as far as an impact guy, as far as a guy, right, you're signing him to be a backup, which makes it even easier for you coming into this season because, you're giving them that, listen, we need the veteran leadership. You've been around the league. You've been with Flus. You understand how this works. Come show the young guy the ropes. We'll give you a little bit of a raise even in my books. Even though you're coming off a little bit of injury last year, to come over here and be in a system that we know is suited to you, right? That's the other thing about it. Over in Philly, similar system, but maybe just wasn't suited to him. Also didn't get a ton of time to be in that system in Houston. So, right, like maybe that would have been a fit for him as well. Some good stuff there. But coming here, being a backup means a lot more, especially with how Flus wants to use the defensive lineman, because we know he likes to do those big platoon swaps, right? It's not just going to be Billings and Dexter out there for 75% of the plays. There's going to be big defensive line swaps. There's going to be a ton of movement on that line, which means you get the opportunity to play. You get the opportunity to mentor some of these young guys. I think that those are 2 things that you can't overlook if you're a guy like Hassan Ridgeway. And so to me, I think that allows the Bears to be able to swoop in and have a conversation with him. It also allows him a little bit of opportunity to say, listen, the injury for me was just a moment. As far as being able to bounce back, I've still got this in me. Put me in the best position to where I can prove that I can bounce back. And I think that's probably what Ridgeway's looking for at this point, the best position that allows him to come out and play his game.
And think about Andrew Billings. We got him for nothing his first year, and then we extended him, and he kind of was playing like, it's very similar stats. Do your job. Don't be flashy. You're not a big name. just a typical do your job kind of guy. And he fits the need of what we need, a big dude up the middle, 6'3", 305, again, 29 years old. I don't mind giving him the exact contract that he got in Houston, and coming off an injury, he knows that a lot of teams are going to, like we were saying about Yannick, like, hey, like, I don't know about that one. Yep. It's a little bit risk I'm willing to take. I think $3.25 million is great. I would take $3.25 million to take one hit in the NFL and probably not be in good shape for at least the rest of my life, but that's okay. So I don't mind this one at all. I think it would be a solid signing. And the overall message here, there's pretty much nothing left out there until camp cuts. I think camp cuts is going to be fun for the Bears this year.
Yeah, and I think that's probably where listen, I've been up to training camp, and the best part about it, or I should say I've been at OTAs and mini camp, and the best part about it is I would say 89% of your spots are filled already, right? Yeah. You're not coming into the season with well, what if this guy does this? Well, what if this guy does this? What if this happens, right? You're kind of confident on where your defensive line and offensive line are coming into this year. They are, I should say, a lot of fans are not, but they are, at least with the defensive line right now. And so to me, I think that's the conversation where you're literally looking for somebody that can come in and do something special, do something really good that you can fill in. I think camp cuts are a great time for the Bears on that as well, because you're going to get those guys where it's like, no, he's still good, but he's a little expensive for our books, and we want to go a different direction here. I think that creates opportunity for you.
And I mean, you could also get them for super cheap too. A lot of these teams cut contracts and you just have to pick up a fraction of it. Yeah. I mean, and there's always at least two guys that you're like, whoa, they got cut. Ryan Poles is just licking his chops right now. He's taking his break, sitting courtside at Sky games, sitting courtside at Bulls games when they were playing. We can talk about that later. But yeah, I think Poles is cooking something that we're just not expecting yet. So
I just need AK to call Ryan Poles. That'd be great. It's like, how'd you do it? Just how'd you do it?
How do I not be the next Garv Foreman, John Paxson? Because I've put myself in that level.
It's a little late for that. Let's see if he can save himself with Giddy.
Anyway, so Pat, right before we get into who you would take out of the two positions, who is a bigger need for the Chicago Bears, we'd like to thank today's sponsor, Freshie Organic Tequila Seltzer, the only organic tequila seltzer on the market based out of Chicago, Illinois. 99 calories, comes in 3 great flavors of lime, grapefruit, guava, and blood orange habanero. Go to the link in the description below and click on the Freshie Finder to find Freshie near you. Pat, let's go into who. Out of the two guys you named, who are you taking that's more important and why?
Yannick, easily. And the reason is because you've got the young guys already on this team. You got Zach Pickens. You've got Javon Dexter. You invested real capital in them, right? Javon Dexter, a 2nd-round pick. Zach Pickens, a 3rd-round pick, right? Those are guys that you expect to have an impact on your team. For that reason, I'm not bringing anybody in who could – what's the right way? Who could take that momentum that they built at the end of the season away from them, right? Javon Dexter, how he started to come on last season, I thought was really telling by the end of that year. You saw the confidence start to grow. You saw the ability start to grow. I don't want anybody standing there that may be sitting there challenging him for that job, because I think that he won that job from Zach Pickens, who was ahead of him last season. So that competition is still there. I want to see those two continue to push each other. Opposite of that, listen, we know what Yannick can do. There's no if with Yannick. I know a lot of people look at last season and they're like, well, what if that's the player that he is? I don't really believe that, because there was the best you had on the other side was DeMarcus Walker for a couple of weeks. And remember, he got hurt last year too. So then you were quickly onto your backups and your backups and your backups. So to me, when you start to have the conversation on, well, why didn't Yannick show out last year? It was him. Now we know coming into this season, it's not just him. There's the Montez Sweat effect. And if you get Javon Dexter to give you, as my co-host on the Chicago Bears podcast always calls, that Santana Dotson effect, former Green Bay Packer. I know that makes some of you sick, but just a dude who was like, this isn't really what I'm used to doing, so I have to adjust what I'm doing. And then once he was able to hit, phenomenal nose tackle, phenomenal 3-tech coming up the middle. That to me is what Javon Dexter has to show. That makes everybody better. Even if you don't bring in Yannick, it all falls on that 3 technique being the linchpin. And if you make that happen, DeMarcus Walker could be a 7-sack guy. But if I was to pick one, focus on one, give me Yannick Ngakoue all day, because I've got a history of what he's able to do coming off the edge, especially when there's somebody else that the defense has to focus on.
Dollar goes farther with him, more of an impact. And also you have all these undrafted rookie free agents. There's always one that Poles takes every year, and he tries to make it that Cinderella story. There's a couple of good ones in that defensive tackle position right now that a lot of people aren't looking at right now. I know you and I are. But when camp comes around, just watch out for him. That's all we got to say.
Where's T Bell? Where's Travis Bell at? The meatball from last year. That's
the one that I said. The one that I called the next Aaron Donald. Yeah, he's on the practice squad for the Falcons.
That's a tough. you called what? What was that?
I called it the Aaron Donald of the future. Anyway, we'll go to the next one. We'll go to the. We'll go to the next topic. That wasn't one.
We've all got a bad one, bro. Don't worry about it.
But I did call Tyson Bagent the next Kurt Warner, and everyone called me crazy. And then Bagent comes in, and it's Bagent mania. So I just saying, you get your. I'm not.
You got to pick like Warner, lower players, bro. Like you don't got to go big or go home for everyone. Yeah, you could have called him the next Kirk Cousins.
How? I guess that's a little lower, but anyway, Pat, while we still got you, one more question, because obviously camp is coming up here in the next 5 weeks. You know, you and I are going golfing before with a few people, so we'll get to see what's going on beforehand. But what are you most excited about for camp to see, or who are you most excited to see perform at camp? Because like you said, 85% of the roster is pretty much locked. Who is that guy that people need to be watching at camp that's going to put on a show, but also could be a huge impact on this team moving forward that they might not be thinking about right now?
The one I'm going to be watching closest, that's a good question, because I mean the obvious ones, right? You're talking about Caleb, you're talking about Rome. The person I'm probably going to be watching closest to see how much they've improved offensively is going to be Tyler Scott, because Tyler Scott has everything except hands. That's a problem. Right? I'm telling you, gets off the line for all of the plays that we're irritated by last season, all are about the finish of the play, which is the most important part, right? But the get off on the line, phenomenal footwork to get off the line, good hands to push himself open for being such a small guy. I think he's a really good route runner. He tracks the ball poorly, and he doesn't bring the ball in well. So I really want to see kind of how he's going to make an impact, because, of course, we're going to have DJ Moore and Keenan Allen and Rome Odunze all healthy, all 17 games heading into the season. But the reality of that happening is sometimes that doesn't happen. And so those are the moments where you want to see a guy who, yeah, he's a little bit later round pick last season, but still a pick that you feel should have some sort of impact on this team. I want to see what he's going to be able to do. And then on the defensive end, I've said it a couple of times, Javon Dexter is my guy that I'm focusing most in on. Like he to me takes this defense from a really solid defense that creates pressure and get takeaways to that top 5 defense that they keep talking about them being.
Yep. You know what? You hit on the two guys that I thought about the most too, because a competitive wide receiver room now, if Tyler Scott can come around, I think that room is going to be dangerous. I mean, obviously, and then the huge impact of Javon too, because 6'6", 315 pounds up the middle. No one can.
And I need a reweigh, bro. I'm not gonna lie. I've been up there, bro. Lean. He might still be 315. Muscle is heavier than fat, so he still might be 315. But when you see him, it's like, oh, he lost some weight. Last year, a little chunky, right? I'm coming in. I'm ready to go.
He has baby fat on him.
Yeah, it has some baby fat on him. That might be crazy. But I think that this season, Javon is ready to go. And
he's locked in, man.
He mentally, and I know no pads, 11 on 11 means nothing in OTAs and minicamp. But it seems like he's reacting. He's not thinking. And that's the biggest thing that held him back for most of the season last year. So he's gonna be a problem this season, I believe.
I'm pumped about it. I know you're pumped about it. And I know that you got the Breeze coming up here in a little bit for people to go and check out. So Pat, everyone, first of all, Pat, thank you for coming on. It's always great hearing from you. And also, next time, you got to let me know we're wearing sport coats next time, because, you're just making me look bad right now. I can't not look like Pat, the designer, right now. But overall, just Pat,
redo this entire interview in a jacket, but you got to re-say everything in WR.
Listen to myself like 15 times and say word for word. I'll put the captions on. No, but Pat, thank you so much for coming on. Pat, where can everyone find you after the show to go subscribe to your channel and also see your amazing sports coverage?
And you can follow me on everything at Pat the Designer. You can follow the show at the Windy City Breeze and tap in with that over on YouTube and on Twitter as well. And you also can check me out on the Chicago Bears podcast Monday through Friday over at ESPN Chicago. So stay tuned with us over there as well.
And what the season is so close. This is the dark days, but we're almost there. And Pat, can't thank you enough for coming on. And thank you all for tuning into this exclusive episode of Just Another Year Chicago Bears. My name is Dick Brody, joined along with my good friend, Pat the Designer. And I want to hear it loud and proud in the comment section. Bear down, baby.